views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Hello and welcome to Open 2.0. I'm your host, Alyssa Colon, and we've got a great show for you today. Today's segment focuses on emerging artists from the Bronx and all over the nation. Here with us today, emerging artist Estelle Maisonett, who is a Bronx native. Estelle's work is inspired by found objects, places, and photographs, and her own live experience growing up in the Bronx. Hello, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So I want to ask, where did you grow up?
So I grew up in the Bronx, born and raised.
How was it growing up in the Bronx?
It was great. It was good. Yeah, I love the Bronx. I mean, I moved to Dykeman for like 3 years, and now I'm back, and I feel like every section of the Bronx is super different.
Yeah.
And there's like a lot of different cultures, a lot of different foods, and like, so I love it. I mean, it's birthplace of hip hop and salsa, so it's hard to not love it.
Did you face any challenges growing up in the Bronx?
I mean, yeah, I think like, definitely, for sure. I wouldn't say that the challenges I faced were unique to growing up in the Bronx. I think they're unique to growing up in any city. I think they're, unique to growing up low income, growing up Latina, growing up a woman. I mean, I think, there's multiple parts of that we could like talk about that definitely contributed to some challenges. But.
Yeah. So I'm curious, did like the Bronx inspire your work?
Yeah, so the Bronx is definitely, I mean, just being from there, it's like instilled in who I am. So I collect found objects. I also take photographs, and a lot of those come from the Bronx. So I collect found objects basically wherever I'm going. If I'm going to work, if I'm going to my friend's house. A lot of the objects I collect are things people throw away, so like discarded materials. So like I'll find like an Arizona can.
Oh, wow.
Or like Newport cigarettes box, or things like that. And then photographing places such as like bodegas or supermarkets, places where a lot of different people kind of interact and intersect. So yeah, that's like one way the Bronx influences my practice.
That's nice. So how did you become passionate in your craft and art?
That's a good question. So my dad actually used to do graffiti. Was like kind of the first interaction I had with art. He was like a DJ. But I wasn't actually that interested in the arts until I went to like 8th grade, and I was really kind of pushed by a teacher. And from there, I kind of had a decision to like apply to art and design high school in the city or go to my local high school, Lehman. And I actually decided to go to art and design. And so that was kind of how I started interacting with art.
Oh, so you would say like that would that like open up your eyes and give you more exposure going to that school, you would say?
For sure. It's interesting because I did cartooning and animation there. And so I was like really interested in storytelling. But after I quickly realized that I didn't enjoy the like one-sided conversation of writing comic books or writing cartoons, and that was kind of what pushed me into fine art, as I wanted to have conversations with people about the work who can kind of describe what they felt the work was about instead of just telling them in text.
Oh, okay. What steps did you take to further your craft and career in art?
I went to college. I went to SUNY Purchase College for art, where I did, as you said, like a bunch of mediums. So I did sculpture, I did painting, I did photography, I did printmaking, which we'll see is kind of all included in the work I make now, which is very collage-based. Okay. So yeah, I did that. I did some residencies. I did a residency at the Bronx Art Space, where you get a free studio. Basically, you apply, you get a free studio for 2 months. Wow. I did the Art in the Marketplace program at the Bronx Museum of Art, which is a career-based program. And just like going to shows, like meeting people, collaborating. I taught for a while, so those are kind of all things that contributed to my practice,
So would you say like who is like a person you look up to in your work?
I mean, there's definitely a lot of artists whose work inspire me. I think all the way back to Robert Rauschenberg, who used found objects. He's kind of like the first, not the first, but one of the more recognized artists for combining sculpture and painting. But now, I mean, there's so many artists making really good work that kind of forces people to think about the current landscape and how we interact with each other. I mean, yeah.
Okay. So you said your style of art is, you said like picking up like found objects around. Could you explain that more?
Yeah. So it's a combination of a few things. So I use found objects, clothing that people give me, actually, and photographs. So I take photographs of different spaces and I actually print them really large. And then I create figures. I create people made out of the clothing that also have found objects. And so my work, I mean, I guess I'll just jump into what my work is about since we're describing it. My work is about like how we perceive identity through consumption. And like what that means is like how do we view people based on how they're dressed, based on the different brands, based on the spaces they occupy. So how do we inform our own perception of each other? And are they actually based on the real person or the things they buy or the places they visit or the places they're from?
Okay, all right. So what are your hopes for your art?
So I have some experience like teaching. I have like kind of an education background as well, and like I'm really interested in creating work that is engaging, that is really community based. And so we'll see. Like I've done installations. So those are pieces that kind of are built within a space. So I created a space around my piece where people can become the figure. So they can step into the clothing almost or behind the clothing.
Okay.
And there's conversation about how we perceive them now when someone else becomes the figure, if that makes sense.
No, I get you, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any other like special techniques or styles to it?
I would just say like painting, photography, sculpture, printmaking, and found objects. So all those things, I would refer to my work as like mixed media assemblage. So
could you explain like mixed media assemblage to other people that might not like understand?
yeah. So mixed media is when you use a lot of different mediums. So the mediums I said are sculpture, photography, painting, and printmaking. So that's what's mixed media. And then assemblage is kind of like collage, where you mix together different materials, except they're not all flat. So they're not two-dimensional. So that's why it's assemblage. You're assembling objects.
Okay. Do you find most of your material in the Bronx?
Yeah, because I spend most of my time here, but it's not limited to the Bronx. So like I work in Manhattan, I work at Parsons. So sometimes I find it on the train, sometimes I find it outside of work. I work on Union Square. But predominantly in the Bronx and near my studio.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Thank you. It has been great talking with you, and we're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned for more Open 2.0, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Open 2.0. We are here with our guest, Estelle, opening a new discussion on advice and tips for emerging artists. So can you show us some of your pieces, and could you like walk us through like what it is and the message behind it?
Yeah. Cool. So this piece is called Netflix and Sleep. It's on Canvas, 2019. So yeah, I'm interested in pattern and like how we use pattern to create different things. So like, for example, there's like floral pattern all throughout this piece. It's floral pants, but also like couch and then planter in the back. So like, how do we visually dissect those things? Is it through shape or space or size?
So these pieces, like you found, like, where did you find these pieces exactly from?
So the clothing, the pants is one of my coworkers who I work with, socks as well. And then the newspaper and Alberto's Mofongo House I take out from Dykeman, Upper Manhattan.
Oh, okay, that's nice.
And I'm interested in also like how we perceive gender as well and like sexual orientation. So those are all conversations that I'm having.
So could you tell me about this one?
Yeah, so this piece I made around the murder of Lisandro Feliz Guzman in the Bronx.
Yeah.
And just thinking about the bodega, that lotto sticker is actually from my local bodega when it got closed down. And just thinking about really how it was a case of mistaken identity.
Yeah.
And how it could have been anyone. So like, why was he perceived to be, a member of a local gang, how this could have happened to anyone, and how literally the bodega is accessible by everyone in the community. So there's Justice for Junior in the back with a crown on top, which is kind of like an ode to Basquiat, if you're familiar with his work.
Yeah.
He's a graffiti artist who uses a lot of the crowns to kind of like idealize or like honor different people or himself. The Coors Light can I found in the Bronx. This is actually my own clothing.
Oh, wow.
And the Times Magazine is about deportation, actually, and families being ripped apart. And so, like, just being interested in, like, who the Times Magazine is for, who purchases it, who has access to it, and things of that nature. And, yeah, this is all life-size work, so it's scaled to real life.
Yeah.
This piece is called No Smoking. In the back is a construction site, actually, from these new luxury apartments being built in the Bronx. So I took that photograph on 3rd Ave, 138th.
Okay.
And you see it kind of says rent on the top.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's a poster I found on the train for a psychic from Brooklyn. There's a phone number if you're interested.
Oh, okay.
And yeah. And so the face is always removed to like have a conversation about who we think this is. Is it what's the gender, what's their economic status, what's their race, or just any ideas that come to mind that you might associate with a smoker or someone who walks by construction sites.
And I'm curious, when you get your pieces, do you like take them home, wash them, or you just stick them right on there? Like, how does that work out?
Yeah, I don't wash them. No, I don't pick up things that are super dirty, so I'm really selective.
Yeah.
But no, I have like a bag of found objects in my studio, and I usually find them flattened, so that helps.
Okay.
Yeah.
What has been experienced, how is it like at your shows and showing this art pieces? Like, how is that? Like, what are people's reactions when they see this?
Well, I think, so something that's really important to me in my work is accessibility, right? So like the art world, sometimes it can be really inaccessible by people who don't understand art, specifically fine art or conceptual art. And so I think because I'm using clothes and I'm using things that people buy, products people are used to, it's like it's easy for people to jump in and kind of create a story. Like they're like, oh, that's a person. Oh, Arizona, I drink Arizona.
Yeah, it's like start a conversation.
Exactly. So usually people kind of just tell me who they think it is without me asking. They're just like, this looks like someone I know, like who lives on my block.
It's kind of like their own like interpretation of like the art, right?
Yeah, and then it's just talking about like how they came to those conclusions and like, are they based in reality? So like really thinking about how we perceive one another and how it impacts how we interact with each other as well.
I really like that. That's really nice.
Thank you.
So, Montax, are there any artist profiles that we should follow?
Yeah, so there's a show up right now at the Andrew Friedman home. It's called The Living Room Kitchen. It's curated by Cara Ventura. 10 really dope young POC artists that you should follow. Okay. That's free and open to the public up till April 4th. And I'm in another show at Katinka Tabakuru Gallery in Harlem that's curated by Daniel Baiz called YB2P. Also 10 really cool artists you guys should follow.
Okay. Yeah. And is there any way that we could contact you?
So I have a website. It's my name, Estelle Maisonett, .com. And I have Instagram. It's ELLE915.
All right.
Yeah.
And if people wanted to, and also if the youth that wants to go into art, do you have like a message for them?
Yeah, I think just like follow your passion. Just make art however you can. Like part of me making this art was just like not having access to kind of more expensive materials like paint. And so it's like even when you have limitations or barriers, just kind of try and make it work.
Okay,
Find solutions, yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
It was such a pleasure.
Appreciate it.
Unfortunately, that's all the time that we have for today's show. We'd like to thank our guest, Estelle Maisonett, for joining us and for you tuning in. Hope you all enjoyed our show and catch us back on the next Open 2.0. Thank you.